Third part. The severed lower half of the giant's body lay in a pool of blood, beckoning the other half to come closer. The sight was enough to make even the most fearless human choose retreat. Nevertheless, the blind girl began to walk toward Greylancer without even the slightest hint of hesitation. Despite her likely sharpened sense of smell, the stench of blood did not reach her upwind. Aided by her stick, the tiny figure, hot blood coursing through its veins, crept closer, ever closer. She stepped forward again, and as one wooden shoe hovered over the pool of blood, "Stop," Greylancer said. "Huh?" The girl teetered, but managed to bring back her foot next to the other. "Never you mind. Go now." But the girl's face clouded. "It will soon turn cold. Go back to your home. Will you be all right?" "Yes, I am rested now." Like a stone turned to a flower, her suspicious look instantly gave way to a smile. "I'm glad," she said. "But I'm not to leave until my companion comes for me. Perhaps we can talk a while." "You must leave now." His voice was stern. Greylancer was fighting back fierce urges. The smell of his own blood around him stung his nostrils. It was what his enervated body was craving. Fresh blood. The one thing that will save you. And it was flowing through the young body standing before you. Yet why did he stop? The girl, clinging to her stick with both hands, gazed down in the direction of the voice with unsighted eyes. "My name is Letitia. Who are you?" "No one you need concern yourself about." The heartbroken girl, Letitia, pouted a little and then smiled. "Then you'll be Mr. No-Name. Where did you come from?" "From the other side of the planet." "This planet?" she asked after a pause. "My, you have been on a long journey. Tell me, what is the other side like?" "What day and month is it now?" asked Greylancer. After she answered, he muttered to himself, "A day has passed. Does the war continue above?" "What?" "Never you mind. Have you heard anything about the moon?" "The moon?" The girl thought for a moment. Then her blonde hair rippled as she bobbed her head in the affirmative. "I heard a rumor that the nobility's fleet destroyed the OSB base. In celebration of this victory, our blood tribute has been decreased by 1/10. "Is that so?" Greylancer felt his fatigue dissipate, knowing his immediate return was not necessary. Crooking her head, the girl asked, "But why would you ask about the moon?" "Oh, I know. You must be a troubadour." "Troubadour? How wonderful. I've always wanted to meet one, someone who travels the world composing songs, that is. I never imagined it would be today. You must come home with me, please." "Well, it's not exactly my home, but my mother and father are nice people. They so enjoy having visitors. They'll be glad to see you." "Will they now?" "Yes." Letitia nodded eagerly like a child. Seeing this, Greylancer asked, "Have you been blind since birth?" She seemed taken aback by the question. "What? No, since I was 5. Until then, the world had shined for her." "Are you bitter?" "Why, of course." "You surprise me. Why is that?" "I have asked others in your state the same question. They all answered no. I understand some people feel that way, but I—" A glimmer rolled down from the hand of her eye. A glimmer rolled down from the hand over her eye. "What is it?" Greylancer asked and was surprised by his own reaction. "Have I taken an interest in a human?" I used to see the sky, the moon, the stars, flowers, and the forest, animals, houses, and everyone. And I used to see everything, until suddenly, I would have been happier had I been born blind at birth. And then Letitia shook her head, her body trembling. I'm sorry. Prattling on to a complete stranger. I wonder why. I'm sorry for bothering you. No. Greylancer stared at the troubled girl. Who would have guessed that a noble was capable of looking upon a human with such kindly eyes? It was an inconsiderate question. Forgive me. Please don't trouble yourself. I'm used to it. Have you tried every possible means? He asked. It's all right. The girl smiled cheerfully. It is not. There may be a cure if you go to the capital. Are you saying that I should have an operation at the hands of the nobility? That's right. The nobility have the means to restore your sight, even reproduce the same eyes you previously had. The pale-skinned beauty smiled sadly this time. What is it? Her lovely hands covered both her eyes. It was a noble who took my side. Oh. Was it your overseer? Perish the thought. Letitia shook her head wildly. You must never say a thing. Lord Merling looks after us with great care. I don't know any noble who is more decent. Merling? The greater noble mumbled the name of his comrade in a barely audible voice. That favor-monger? Nevertheless. Just my fortune that I've landed in his territory. He will have to receive me as a guest if he wants to repay his debts. What was that? Nothing. It was the noble that took your side. I was given away for adoption as a girl. My real family didn't have the means to bring up a worthless girl like me. But I became this way because a neighboring family fled the village to join the anti-nobility alliance. They were captured by the overlord's men and brought back to the village to be executed. Are you familiar with execution by quartering? I know it. The condemned's neck, arms, and legs are chained to wagons and rended apart. Greylancer imagined the gruesome scene and licked his lips in spite of himself. The bloodbath. The girl, none the wiser, lowered her gaze and recalled the incident. The people who fled were not the only ones to be executed. Their actions brought the same fate on their families. Among them a young man who often looked after me as a child. I clung to him as he was being dragged to the execution ground. That was when the overlord's retainer lashed his whip across my eyes. I've lived in darkness ever since. A hard fate. The noble who took your side will suffer a death 100 times more cruel than that of your friend. Don't talk like that. The girl shook her head, shaking off tears from her eyes and cheeks. I've had enough with death and hurt. The nobility may think nothing of being dismembered, but we humans must die screaming and crying in agony. Greylancer mused, looking down at his severed lower half. I'm sorry I've only just met you. My emotions have gotten the best of me. I just thought that a bard might understand so many things. Wiping away the tears, Letitia said, Perhaps you'll compose for me a song. A song, yes. First, answer me this. Who was the overseer that robbed you of your side? It was Lord Greylancer. A cool wind brushed across the prairie. Waves of grass rippled where Greylancer lay. Letitia, he muttered. Answer me another. You don't sound angry. Do you not bear a grudge against this overlord? He did not order this man to take my sight from me. Yes, but there's not enough anger in this world to express what I feel for the man who did this to me. If ever I found his grave, I'd stop at nothing to drive a stake into his heart. but I bear no resentment toward the Overlord. This Overlord aside, do you not resent the nobility? My mother taught me that fate is the messenger of both happiness and misfortune. Your mother, she abandoned you, did she not? It was the only way she could survive. My mother and father held my hand and cried time and again over how sorry they were. Is parting always so sorrowful? You must be a fortunate man to ask such a question. I'm glad. Glad. Yes, I'm glad that people like you exist. I'm glad to have met you. Greylancer directed his eyes away from her smile and looked up. A clear moon was not visible in the darkening blue sky. Only the day before, he'd been engaged in a vicious battle on the far side of the moon. And now he lay in a field on his home planet 300,000 kilometers away. By his side stood a blind girl who told him she was happy they met. What else did your mother teach you? Nothing will come of blaming fate. Then I am free to go on hating the cause of my misfortune, but to never think of the world as an evil place. I may hate the noble that took my side, but I must not blame any of the others. The nobility are alive as we are, and as long as they exist, they stray and suffer as we do. That is why I do not hate the nobility. Raking up her loose hair as Letitia urged him. Now compose a song for me, please. Then came Greylancer's astounding answer. You have been warned. It will be poorly composed. Yes, all right. The golden-haired girl nodded at once, her dress looking like the most becoming garment in all the world. The girl closed her eyes and stood beneath the blue sky. Were Greylancer to reveal that he composed a song before, the nobles might fold up in laughter at the world's greatest joke ever told. Yet in fact he had. Just one verse. Greylancer searched for it in the cobwebs of memory. After the wind stroked his hair a second time, out of his crimson lips came a song. When first he entered with a shadow and began to dance, I could not see the controlling strings. Dance, will you? Dance, will you? Cut the strings of fate into the night and dance, and make fateful in step with me. Waves of grass nodded their approbation. The wind blew. Twilight wrapped around the night song and its poet in an embrace. Chapter 4, End.